If Iran threatens us in any way, they will pay a price like few countries have ever paid.
Concern, Iran may be preparing for retaliation against all of that. Israel has gone on alert, as you say.
It won't be so easy for them to restart. Mr. President, they're not going to be restarting anything. They restart it, they're going to have big problems, bigger than they've ever had before. And you can mark it down. They restart their nuclear program, they will have bigger problems than they have ever had before. Thank you very much, everybody.
America is about to go to war, a war that she wants, a war that she thinks she can control. The stakes are high. Who will rule and who will be ruled? Who deserves to live and who deserves not to live? This is the battle for the planet. The blacks in America are oblivious to reality, oblivious to the threat. The blacks in America are about to be thrown into the fire. Gog and Magog had decided the fate of the blacks. They are tired of carrying them, tired of seeing them, tired of pacifying them. The main target is the original black people, the true inheritors, the true people of the book. As Pharaoh and King Herod were fully aware of the birth of the Messiah and the threat to their kingdoms, so is America equally aware, even more so, as they monitor the writings of Jonah, aka Suleiman, though the blacks ignore them. They know what time it is and what's at stake. They have made their plans and we have made our plans. Total war, like never seen before. Time of unprecedented trouble. There will be no rules, no restraints, no quarter, nor mercy shown to anyone. America, a harlot, Babylon, is going for broke. She has planned to scorch the surface of the earth, make the earth unlivable. Quote, if they can't have it, then no one can, end quote. We have our plans. Farad is about to execute his plan, leading his Shia army against America, Britain, and false Israel to their worst humiliating military defeat in the Middle East, preempting America, Britain, and false Israel, the dragon, Saudi Arabia's plan to attack and destroy Iran. This is imminent. It will come upon America, Britain, and false Israel as a snare. In their last act of desperation, they will send you, their black seed, their black bastards against us. Their plan is to use you to annihilate us, then annihilate you. We are watching. The original man is the universe, the consciousness of the universe. He is the, quote, maker, owner, cream of the planet Earth, God of the universe, end quote. The universe is not an enemy to the original man, but Gog and Magog are. They are contrary beasts who are made in haste and made so strong that only Allah himself can destroy. Quote, I have created some of my servants whom no one can destroy but myself, end quote, Hadith. They are stripped down versions of us, quote, having a form of godliness but denying the power thereof. From such turn away, end quote. They are mankind. They were made without our accessories. We are told to stay away from them. A strong, healthy immune system has alarms to let you know where there is danger. The alarms are called allergies. Allergies are not a sign or evidence of weakness. On the contrary, allergies are a sign of a healthy, strong, working immune system. The devils, for the most part, don't have strong, healthy immune systems, and the ignorant or uninformed take them to be strong and healthy. Allergies alert you that what you are ingesting, eating, inhaling, touching, or in proximity to is harmful for you and you should desist or flee. Without those alarms, those dangerous entities get into our system undetected, and we don't realize the damage they are causing until we are diagnosed with cancer, tumors, or some other disease threatening our existence. Some of us have the alarms but ignore them, so they suffer the symptoms of the alarms, such as headaches, congestion, irritability, etc. For those, I have no pity. If you keep putting your finger in fire after you realize the consequence, then why should anyone pity you? The scientists who wrote the scriptures knew our peril, our situation, and the fact that many of us have wrecked immune systems. Immune systems weak and devoid of any alarms by reason of the devils corrupting our bodies with their corrupt seed. After 400 years of rape, they're forcing their corrupt seed on us and in us. It's a wonder that there are any original people left, and of those left, that they are genetically intact. So the scientists wrote down all the things and conditions we should avoid for those who've had weak, faulty, or failed alarms. Before the cavity, cancer did not exist. The advice the scientists prescribed, if obeyed, will be as effective as a natural, healthy alarm. I personally have a very strong and healthy immune system with all the alarms active and functioning. I grew up allergic to just about everything, as the entire environment created by the devils is as contrary to us as they are. But I listened to my alarms and have lived a healthy life because of it, except for one condition, and that was the allergy to cats, dogs, rabbits, all furry animals that I didn't realize until my 50s, when I almost died from rabies that the children had. Many, if not all, disease originated from contact with animals, unusual contact, even intimate contact. Cancer in most cases are from contact with animals. Animals, no matter how much you bathe, care for, or groom them, are filthy creatures and should never be in your home or around your children. If your children or yourself are not allergic to them, then it is because your alarms are failing or non-existent. That is, if you are original. But you can be sure that damage is being done, but you may or will not realize until it's too late, if ever. So if you ignore the wisdom, advice, instructions of the scientists as revealed in the scriptures, do not blame anyone but yourself when you are diagnosed with cancer, tumors, nervous disorders, diabetes, and all the myriad of disorders that we are bombarded with on the air, on TV, internet, etc. Get and keep all animals out of your house. Don't pet them, don't touch them, don't go near them, and certainly don't be kissing them or letting them kiss you. Remember that colds came from dogs. The so-called Native Americans did not know what a cold was until the devil showed up with their dogs and wiped out millions of the natives with the, quote, common cold, end quote, wasn't common to the natives. The devils are as filthy as their dogs, quote, having a form of godliness but denying the power thereof. Of such stay away, unquote. We are even warned to stay away from them. Let's be absolutely clear. The sperm is the seed, not the egg. That fact is both scientific, biblical, Quranic, historical, and logical. Anyone that says different is either a liar, misinformed, ignorant, or just plain stupid. You are what your father is, period. The prophecy, quote, know of a surety that thy seed shall be a stranger in a land that is not theirs, and shall serve them, and they shall afflict them for 400 years, end quote, is addressed to Abraham's seed, not Jacob's devil's seed. Anyone who tells you that one drop of black blood makes you black is a liar, unless they mean it in generic terms. It might make you black, but does it make you Abraham's seed? Does it make you original? There are two seeds in the world, the original seed and the grafted or devil's seed. You are one or the other. The devil promotes that, quote, one drop of blood rule, end quote, to justify throwing the offspring of his rape by women into the cotton fields. They are their children, their seed, not ours. We don't claim them. We don't own them. We don't want them. In the beginning, when the universe was in full contraction, it was the size of the earth. It was the earth. The earth was the universe. This means that all the energy, fire, and force we see in the heavens was once within the earth. The earth was extremely hot, hotter than all the stars put together. The earth was essentially the first and greatest star ever. The proof of it is that all the possible elements are found in the earth. The elements, or atoms, are produced within the core of stars. The sun, as big and hot as it is, can only produce the helium element, which is just two protons fused together. It would take a star thousands of times bigger and thousands of times hotter than the sun to make the denser atoms such as gold, which is 79 fused protons. Plutonium, for instance, is made up of 94 fused protons. The Earth would have to have been under mind-numbing pressure to fuse elements that dense, more pressure than any star in existence. Consider lead, one of the heaviest elements, a metal. It is made up of 82 protons. Yet, even though a metal has near the consistency of flesh and almost the color of brain, you can mold and shape it by touch with your fingers, which just means that it is not obvious what properties an element might possess. DNA is the atom of life, the most complex atom in the universe. There is only one thing that is infinite. and that is the existence of the universe. The universe is eternal. It has always existed and will always exist. The universe expands and contracts like a pulsating heart without end. When the universe is at its greatest contraction, it is the size of the earth. It is the earth. The pressures on the earth at the universe's maximum contraction are the most intense ever, the most intense possible. Extreme pressure means intense temperatures. Temperature is the measure of how fast atoms, protons, neutrons are moving. Pressure is the measure of the frequency and intensity of the collisions of atoms, protons, and neutrons in a constrained space. The fact that every element possible is found in the earth means that it took the total pressure of the universe to form them. It takes pressure to form/fuse atoms. This means that in the beginning there was the earth. The earth was extremely hot and extremely dark, as there was only the earth. The atoms at the core of the earth were moving at upwards of 24 billion miles per second, the speed of thought, consciousness, self-creation. We did not create the earth. The earth was already present. We made it, meaning we formed it. Cream is something that rises from the bottom to the top. We self-created in the center or core of the earth, which is the bottom of the earth, our womb. We rose from the core of the earth to the surface or top of the earth. Quote, cream of the planet Earth, unquote. We create ourselves in the intense fire, in the triple darkness of the core of the earth or womb, our womb. There was no sun. There was darkness outside of the earth, on the surface of the earth, and in the core of the earth. Total triple darkness. We see that the scientists caused the universe to expand, called the Big Bang, using energy from the earth to create the heavens. In other words, the scientists, we, caused the universe to expand. Everything in the heavens originated on and from the earth. The earth is the true center of the universe. Energy was taken from the earth in waves of the frequency of about 50 to 60 years per wave. An expanding universe is in a state of tension, which is the inverse of pressure. Pressure pushes, tension pulls. In order for the universe to expand, it had to convert potential space to space by definition. Potential space is matter. Space is energy. Potential space is just that, potential, non-space, a geometric point. By converting non-space/potential space into space, you are creating something from nothing, non-space into space. That is the only way anything can expand by definition, converting non-space into space. That's what expansion is. We use the abundance of energy in the earth to create the heavens, stars, galaxies, constellations, and countless habitable planets. As a result, there is a deficit of energy on the earth. Deserts, wickedness, wars, and oppression which result from the competition for the scarcity of energy. We see that the scientists caused the universe to expand, called the Big Bang, taking energy from the earth to create the heavens. The beings that did this were alive and conscious, yet they made everything living from water after they began the creation of the heavens. So they were alive and conscious before creating all living things from water. This explains Iblis's statement that he was made of intensely hot fire. Intensely hot fire is intense pressure where the temperature is extremely hot. The core of stars as well as the sun are intensely hot fire under intense pressure. Since there was only the earth, the scientists, the creators had to be within the earth. Thought is pressure. Pressure is force. It takes force to move anything. Nothing can move without force. The Earth's core, under extreme pressure, under extreme temperatures, temperatures where atoms were moving at the average speed of 24 billion miles per second, achieved consciousness. Consciousness is pressure. Consciousness is thought. These are the scientists, the original beings who, being made of intensely hot fire, were self-created. Having ignited the creation of the heavens, the first heaven being the atmosphere of the earth, which was made of an array of basic gases. Hydrogen, the simplest, to oxygen, the more complex. Both hydrogen and oxygen are gases. They are both fire. Basic fire is just oxygen sped up a bit. Oxygen having its temperature raised. The scientists used the abundance of hydrogen, which is the most abundant and simplest of the elements, to ignite the initial expansion of the universe. As hydrogen is the most explosive and the most abundant of the elements, hence hydrogen bomb. Then they, the scientists, combined the hydrogen and oxygen, two forms of fire, to make water, to begin the cooling of the surface of the earth. The scientists then turned to the creation of life. They first converted their consciousness, their first creation, self-creation, into liquid-based bodies. There was no sun. The surface of the earth was still cold and dark. All the energy, heat, and fire was within the core of the earth. The heat from the core kept the waters warm. The original beings, having formed water-based bodies, could no longer exist at the fiery earth's core. They moved into the newly created seas, where they began the creation of all life, all carbon-based life. Organic life began in the seas. The original beings, though possessing the basic form we have today were much simpler beings in the beginning. They began the journey of self-perfection by genetically engineering themselves, separating the weakest / simplest aspects of themselves from themselves, starting with the simplest, what we call organism, to ever more complex ones, perfecting themselves along the way. Each entity in its time in sync with the ever-increasing tensions of the expanding universe. The increasing tension generated dissatisfaction, which inspired greater perfection. Each act of creation, separation, self-perfection produced a being which was given self-expression and a sense of independence so it could find its way in the creation. The creation process continued, ever more complexity, each iteration in its time, in response, the waves of increasing tension until our most complex creation, the beast of speech, the Caucasian whites, the first beast capable of speech other than ourselves. Tension is the creative force. Tension causes dissatisfaction, which invokes change. Tension is the opposite of pressure. Tension pulls things apart. Fission. Pressure pushes things together. Fusion. The original beings are the universe, the consciousness of the universe. We are in total sync with the universe. If the universe is in a state of tension, then we are in a state of tension, a state of dissatisfaction. Tension is resolved by breaking things apart, separating into two that which is in a state of tension. Then the tension goes away. The dissatisfaction goes away. The tension is what maintains the integrity of the separation. When the separated parts in turn come under tension, then they must be broken into even smaller parts, a process that continues as long as the tension continues to increase. That's the creative process. Tension is the driving force of creation, the dissatisfaction which the tension creates. Tension was the driving force that brought the moon into existence. The tension / dissatisfaction was very great. The scientists disagreed on how to address the tension. Some wanted to separate the earth as the increasing tension was causing great convulsions in the earth. Some thought by separating the original genderless beings into genders, as they had already been doing with animals, was the solution. Both were met with fierce resistance from the opposing side. Those who chose the separating of the earth did not want to go the gender route, as they saw that as the end of their idea of immortality, as their offsprings were virtually identical versions of themselves. In addition, there would be a fundamental change in the language, as the language at that time was genderless. The split the Earth group failed to understand that both solutions were integral to the solution. Both the Earth and the original people are one, in total sync, profoundly integrated. The proof is that both the separating of the Earth into two, the primary and the secondary coincided with the separation of the genderless into genders male and female. The female, the secondary, is in sync with the moon. The secondary of the two, earth and moon. The woman whose primary purpose is reproduction, as that function, reproduction / beauty, was transferred to her, is in total sync with the moon. The word month derives from moon. The woman's monthly cycle is dependent on the moon. There could be no monthly cycle without the moon. That's the evidence and the sign of the woman's connection with the creation of the moon. The function of strength and wisdom went with the male in the separation. The fact that they, male / female, were once the same being is evidenced in part by the now useless breast of the male. They once were functional. When the tension reaches the threshold which triggers a creation event, the threshold of 100% dissatisfaction, then we bring into existence a new creation from us, which was a part of us. By so doing, we relieve the tension, even as we perfect ourselves while identifying and separating the part of us that is the cause of the tension through genetic engineering. This process puts a face on the tension, a face on the problem. Now the problem is open and visible for all to see, having self-expression and a sense of independence. We give the problem, the tension, a face and a back. Quote, and certainly you have come to us one by one as we created you at first, and you have left behind your backs what we gave you. End quote. Our very last creation is the face and source of our present dissatisfaction. As long as they exist, our dissatisfaction exists. We put a face on our dissatisfaction so that it is easily identified and easily removed when the tension that spawned their creation is no longer the wind beneath their wings. Do not let anyone tell you that you are the problem. No, they are. Quote, for we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against power, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual weaknesses in high places. End quote. The original man no longer has the, quote, devil, unquote, in him. That's the reason for Yakub's program, to remove that weak / wicked seed. There are blacks that have the devil in them. That's because they are devils, the devil's seed, the product of the rape of our innocent black, beautiful women, girls, and toddlers. There is no devil in the original people anymore. We removed it and gave it self-expression and a sense of independence. We gave them their backs. They have been very naughty, though, as they have want to be. The devils have created a version of themselves that resembles us, their bastard seed, which is devil enclosed in blackness. Their attempt to deceive us and survive the purge won't work, but can't blame them for trying. archaeological record is correct. We see the simplest life forms the oldest, and the most complex the youngest, newest, or most current. That's the basis of evolution theory, that things evolve from the simplest to the most complex. So the white supremacists feel safe in stating the blacks are older than whites, as apes are older than blacks. That means that apes are lower on the evolution ladder and have stopped evolving, which makes them animal and capable of advancement. What they don't reveal is that is what they think about blacks. That's what evolution states. Evolution is supposed to be science, meaning it's truth. The archaeological record is science, but the conclusion is conjecture, philosophy, not science. They used to state it openly, at least until the 60s, when it became too politically incorrect. But they still believe it and teach it, just not openly. If you believe in evolution, then you believe in black inferiority. That's the true message of evolution. Blacks are no longer evolving. They are incapable of intellectual advancement, save for a few exceptions, mostly those who have white genes. They used to openly refer to blacks as, quote, the missing link, unquote, between animal and human. Hence the 3/5 human designation, which is still engraved in the Constitution. Make no mistake, they still believe we are just between animal and human. If they don't, then why don't they take it out of the Constitution, who they claim was inspired by Jesus himself? Why are they still honoring monsters who believed blacks are animal and treated blacks as or worse than animals? Jefferson, Washington, so-called founding fathers. Why are they still honoring those monsters who openly stated that blacks are not human, wrote it down, and immortalized it in their Constitution? It's because they still believe it. And if they, Jefferson, Washington, founding fathers, were guilty of anything, it was just animal abuse, which is unfortunate, but not really a crime. The archaeological record is correct. The conclusions are wrong. We made everything living from ourselves, beginning with the simplest microorganisms, first to the most complex, man, the Caucasians. The creation process was motivated by the increasing tension of the expanding universe. Each iteration was meant to address the dissatisfaction which resulted from the tension of expansion. We are the universe. Increasing tension causes instability, dissatisfaction in the original people. Tension pulls things apart. That which is being pulled apart is in a state of tension. The tension, a state of distress, a state of dissatisfaction, can only be relieved by the object giving up a piece of itself, separating a part of itself from itself. That's the creation process. The original being resolved tension, generated dissatisfaction by separating ever-increasing complex parts of himself, which was designed by him to bring about increasing perfection of himself and increasing variety in his universe. The first being was self-created in that there was no conscious being present to create him. He was the product of extreme pressures of a fully compressed universe. Thought is pressure. Thought is force. It requires force to animate or move anything. Without force, nothing moves. So thought must be force. Therefore, pressure is just force confined in some space, in our case, the brain. It took pressure to form our brains. Thought is consciousness. Therefore, consciousness is pressure. Since it took the pressure of a fully compressed universe to form our consciousness, then our consciousness, which is pressure, is equal to the maximum pressure of the universe. All this means is that since consciousness is pressure, the universe is pressure, and our consciousness, which is pressure, equal to the total universal pressure, then we can understand the universe and everything about it. Understanding is thought. Once our self-creation was complete, we initiated the universal expansion phase. The expansion phase put the universe in a state of tension, which is the opposite of pressure. Pressure forces, fuses things together, while tension pulls, fission things apart. The tension was slight at first, ever increasing until the universe reached its maximum expansion. The slight tension in the beginning created a state of instability/dissatisfaction in the original being. He resolved that by separating a small, simple portion of himself from himself through genetic engineering. This creative act resolved this instability called dissatisfaction. As the universe continued to expand, generating increased tension, the original being repeated the creative process through genetic engineering, separating ever more complex beings from himself. This continued until the current age, where at the beginning of this 6,000-year age, we separated the most complex being ever, quote, a beast from the earth that speaks, end quote. The Caucasian white man, Yakub's creation. Each creation brought into existence in its time, a time when it is in perfect sync with the tension wave, otherwise it would not be able to survive. Anything not in tune/in sync with the universe cannot exist. Now that the universe is in its contraction phase, the last created will be the first to become extinct, as it no longer is in sync with the tension wave that fueled its existence. We are in perfect sync with the universe. We can never become extinct or destroyed. That's the truth of creation, not evolution, rather diversion. The original people of the earth possess the most dominant genes. We can produce every life form on the planet, including the Caucasians, yet not one of them can produce us, not even the Caucasians. We produce them once and we can produce them again and again, but the only time in our history that Caucasians can exist and flourish in is during the 6,000-year transition period between universal expansion and universal contraction. Their season has ended. Pressure nullifies tension. Now that universe is in its pressure phase, and the KV has no tolerance for pressure. The KV has discovered that an egg can be fertilized with a living cell, which is the basis of cloning. A living cell is already fertilized. It has the active living material in it. What they have stumbled onto is the biological aspect of diversion, which they mistakenly think is evolution. Tension events are the motivation for creation events. The scientists take an fertilized egg that is in the process of replication by division. They let it divide until the stage they wish to work with. Then they split the egg into two parts. One part they apply a divide inhibitor, which will prevent the separated egg from further division, but not prevent it from development. Therefore, the potential complexity of the egg is retarded/suspended to the level it had achieved at the time of its separation. The second part is taken and inserted into another egg fertilizing that egg. Since the egg is fertilized with a more complex fertilizing agent, it will develop from that point on devoid of the attributes expressed in the subdivision levels before it was separated, which are solely the attributes of the first part. The result is two beings, one having all the attributes of the pre-separation and the other all the attributes of the post-separation. I explain. The being that produced the fertilizing agent may have been intelligent with wings. After the process, there are two new beings, one with wings but no intelligence, the other with intelligence but no wings. That is how we created all living things from ourselves. Only two exceptions, gender and the Caucasians. Both require special but differing processes. There is no mystery God involved or a participant in our individual creation. We started out as sperm from our fathers, alive, conscious, animated. We possessed all the wisdom called DNA to find the material, the egg, to complete our creation. There was no one there in the total triple darkness of the womb but ourselves. We self-create ourselves with the wisdom DNA from our fathers and the creative material egg from our mothers, alone but wise and capable. Trillions of calculations engineering trillions of cells, all by ourselves. There was no gifts bestowed by some mystery God. That's the backward Sunni thinking. If you listen to them, you'd be waiting for a magic carpet ride to your next destination. Heard of airplanes lately? Or are you busy looking for that angel on your shoulder? Heard of science, genetics, biology, etc.? It is so easy to expose, to debunk the ignorance of Sunnism, that it would be like kicking a baby. Remember how Abraham exposed the foolishness of idolatry to his father. It would be easier than that. They claim that the mother and father has absolutely no control, no effect of what is in the mother's womb. Where do crack babies come from? They claim that, quote, Allah, end quote, is totally responsible for and the only creator of what issues from the womb, and that he makes everything perfect. Quote, who made beautiful everything that he created, end quote. Do they really know what that means? What about deformed babies? Allah made an error? They claim that all our genetic gifts come from Allah. What about retarded kids? They didn't deserve any gifts? Where is perfection in being retarded? Besides, who is this Allah that's spending all his time in women's wombs? He sure ain't Farad, who they claim is Allah in person. Any gifts you might have are expressions of your DNA, period. It really is beneath intellect to continue with this, because it's like arguing with a dead fool. First, he can't hear you, and even if he could, he wouldn't. The man emits millions of sperm, but only one can find and enter the egg. Each sperm is a genetic copy of the male that emitted it, yet only one survives that reality to enter into a new and greater reality. Of all the sperm that begins the journey, only one completes it. If each is identical, then what distinguishes them? Time. Each sperm, though by virtually identical, are time-stamped. The only one that can win the competition is the one whose genetic code is time-stamped in perfect sync with the reality of the then. It will be the strongest because Being in complete, timely sync with the universe, it has the full force of the universe at its back. It's like hundreds of sailboats in a race, only one is in perfect sync with the wind, which gives it an edge over all the other sailboats. If perchance a sperm that was not perfectly in sync fertilized the egg, it would likely fail the self-creation process and arrive stillborn. However, in the very unlikely event that it survived the self-creation process and was not physically deformed, it would be openly disorientated, confused, unsuccessful, being out of sync with the universe, out of sync with time. To be crystal clear, everything is mathematics. Everything. We are mathematics. The Quran does not mention genetics directly. It doesn't mention gravity directly. It doesn't mention electricity directly. It doesn't mention atoms, protons, neutrons directly nor implicitly. But it is all there for the firmly rooted in knowledge. The statement, quote, Allah is quick at reckoning, end quote, is a mathematical statement. It is not talking about some mystery God. It's talking about the, quote, every action has an opposite but equal immediate reaction law. But for the foolish, it's just more confusion. Quote, Allah created everything in the womb, end quote, is again a mathematical statement. It's the mathematics, the wisdom of the DNA, the essence of the sperm that is the creative agent, nothing more, not even the egg. The egg is not alive, it is just genetic material. Is Adam of the Bible the first man? That's not what the Bible says. What about Melchizedek? A man who has no beginning nor end of life. So Adam could not have been the first man, as it is clear that Melchizedek is a man who existed before Adam. He is greater than Jesus, as Jesus is just the Prince of Peace, while Melchizedek is the King of Peace, who Abraham, who is known to only bow to God, bowed to him. So Melchizedek must be God and a man, which sheds light on the following, quote, let us make man in our image and likeness, end quote. Therefore, Adam looks like, resembles him who created him, another man, his creator. So who is this Melchizedek? Is it a person or a people? What does science say? The archaeologists, geneticists, the biologists all agree that black preceded the white. Therefore, the scriptures should be clear. The, quote, let us, end quote, are black people, Melchizedek, who made Adam, the Caucasians, in their image and likeness, giving them 6,000 years of rule, limited rule. self-expression, and a sense of independence. They have proven unworthy to live among the righteous, unworthy of self-government. So now we are reining them in, gathering them together, rolling them up, and binding them with chains. We are the black mud fashioned into shape from which Caucasians were made. This verse is universally read wrong. Most read it as, quote, man was made with black mud material, end quote. But that's incorrect, for the black mud is already fashioned into shape. It doesn't say refashioned. It's like saying, quote, I made a vase from a vase, end quote. The vase is clay already fashioned. So how can you make another vase out of clay already fashioned? This is what happens when you let someone else do your thinking for you. We are the, quote, black mud fashioned into shape, end quote. Man, Caucasians, were made from our life germ, sperm, or blood clot. How can they be made from both black mud fashioned into shape and a life germ? Makes no sense. But then reason has no weight with the Sunnis. They, the man, the Caucasians, are Yaqub's creation. They are the most complex and the last of our creations. They are the beast that we raised up from the earth with the power of speech. Being the last of our creation, powered by maximum universal tension, their power is about to abate as the tension that empowers them is about to abate. The tension that empowers them had a 6,000-year shelf life. The Caucasians were created with an expiration date built in. That degree of tension that empowers them only lasts or endures during the 6,000-year transition period between the universal expansion phase and the universal contraction phase. The wisdom of Yaqub was to make a stripped-down version of the original man devoid of accessories, who required less energy and requires minimal to no maintenance, as opposed to the original man who requires an abundance of energy and high maintenance. In the 6,000-year transition period between the universal expansion and universal contraction, when the energy levels are at a minimum, Yaqub's creation, the Caucasians, the swine eaters, have the advantage. The fact of requiring less energy empowered their rule. They are mankind that we created. Quote, having a form of godliness, but denying the power thereof. From such turn away, end quote. They were created for a season and one season only. They were created with an expiration date built into their DNA. The devils are the adversary, the deceivers of the entire earth, the creatures conceived in haste, birth and sustained in tension. They are adverse and averse to pressure, the inverse of tension. Pressure has arrived. Their end has arrived. Their plan to scorch the surface of the planet on their way out will not work. They have conspired to sneak into the kingdom camouflaged with black skin. Also will not work. The frequency of the energy wave is approximately every 60 years, called the Jubilee. The wave is absorbed by the Earth, energizing the Earth, the soil, the oceans, the atmosphere, converting the energy wave into forms of energy we can process. The energy is absorbed by the population, energizing the population. This process follows a rising curve, which is an increase of pressure energy. As the energy is absorbed and processed, the pressure energy curve tapers off and tends downward, decreasing pressure energy until the next energy wave. The downward trajectory strengthens the adverse, the contrary, those whose wings are lifted by tension, the ego, the Caucasians. They are in the midst of their last surge, their last hurrah. Quote, let's be great again, end quote. They see themselves as soaring high and forever, just to be slammed down to the earth. The Caucasians, Adam and Eve, are the open enemy. They were created contrary to make mischief and shed blood. It is their nature. They cannot do otherwise. In their eyes, we are the devil. We are the evil. We are the enemy. Everything they do is against us, even if they think it is well intentioned. What they think is good is evil. But in the time of their season, what they do will be just for that period of time. Quote, woe to them that call evil good and good evil, that put darkness for light and light for darkness, that put bitter for sweet and sweet for bitter. End quote. The following verse seems to evade scrutiny. Reading it carefully, one would have to ask themselves the obvious. When were the disbelievers not wrongdoers? During the season of Yaqub, the believers, the righteous, were out of season. They were the wrongdoers by definition. Good news is that their time has expired. Now, the disbelievers are the wrongdoers. The point here is that if you are out of season, you are out of season. Your deeds will bear no fruit. In the time of thorns, thorns will flourish. The hidden enemy are what the devils have made. Quote, blacks made in America, end quote. These are the slave master's bastards, the product of the unrelenting, unrestrained rape of original women for 400 years. There was design and purpose to their rape, corruption of our people. Firstly, to make black people who were loyal and devoted to them, whose hearts would be turned to them, docile slaves and servants. Secondly, as insurance that their race would survive, camouflaged as blacks in the event that blacks gained power. There is much in the scriptures concerning this subject, yet there is a deathly silence coming from the, quote, Nation of Islam, end quote, from Mr. Farrakhan. Mr. Farrakhan claims that one drop of black blood from either parent makes you black. Well, that's the slave master's contention, motivated by his need to justify throwing his own, quote, black, end quote, children into the cotton fields. If black is a generic term, then that assertion is true. You are black, but being black don't make you original. Don't make you Abraham's seed. You are what your father is, period. That's science, not conjecture, not someone's misguided opinion. There were two types of slaves in the field, the original blacks and the offspring of the slave masters' raping of original black women. Two types, two perspectives, two narratives. The slave masters' bastards had their perspective. They wanted to be closer to their daddies, the slave master. They loved him, hoped that one day he would love them. They just wanted to be accepted in the family. They didn't feel like they should be in the fields with the other field niggers. They felt they were better than them. After all, their father was the slave master. They didn't care about what their daddies was doing or had done to the other slaves. They hated the other slaves as much as their daddies did. They would do anything to be closer to daddy. They would encourage the other slaves to be loyal and devoted to daddy. And if they resisted, they were quick to tell daddy. On the other hand, the black original slaves hated the slave master. They hated him, his family, and everything about him. They wanted out, away as fast and as far as possible. They hoped for justice and revenge. They resisted at every opportunity. Their narratives are in direct opposition to each other. You can never convince them that their daddies are the devil, that they should condemn and forsake them. They can't convince those who are left of the original people to love the slave master, to obey him, to be like him. They are as much devil as their daddies, but more dangerous because they can get close and wreak havoc before you realize who they are, if ever. They are murderous. They are the murderers, drug dealers, rapists in the black community who their daddies point to as being our people, when in reality they belong to them. They're black, colored, devil children. The messenger warned of them. They're black-looking women who they will use as a weapon against us. The original people are not and cannot be niggers. Niggers were/are made in America. The original people preceded America. They are original. There was no such thing as nigger before America. Niggers are products of America. What is a nigger? Niggers and Negroes are the product of the rape of original women. Niggers are Caucasians in black skin. They think and act as their daddies do. They have the same hope and aspirations as their daddies. They have nothing in common, nothing with the original people save their complexion. Black cats and black dogs have their blackness in common, but it don't make them brothers. Black is a generic term which covers anyone with a drop of black blood. But being black don't make you original. When they say black, it is like saying the black sheep of the family. The black Caucasians, niggers, are the black sheep of the Caucasian family. They are not original. They are not family. They are devils, albeit black devils, but devils nevertheless. Don't be deceived. They are your, quote, not so hidden enemy, end quote. You trust them at your own risk. The seed is the sperm. The egg is the material, the soil, if you will. You can plant an apple seed in a variety of soils, which will impact the development of the seed's growth, but will not change its nature. It might be strong, stunted, weak, deformed, but will still be an apple tree. We are taught that Islam is mathematics and mathematics is Islam and can be proven in no limit of time. This clearly states, if you believe in what the messenger revealed, that everything is mathematics as Islam encompasses all things. Everything is mathematics. Everything. If anyone claims knowledge, especially advanced knowledge of Islam, then they should be able to prove what they are saying mathematically. They can't, then they are liars. Philosophy and dogma are not mathematics. They are just what they are: conjecture and stubborn, intransigent ignorance. The so-called ministers, imams of Islam, espouse philosophy and dogma rather than real knowledge because they don't have any real knowledge. Often their pronouncements defy mathematics, even reason, which they rationalize as proof that it is from God, quote, beyond mortal ability to understand, end quote. I agree with the messenger that their understanding of Islam is not worth a dime. If it ain't mathematics, it ain't. And I don't have time for it. The scriptures are written in allegorical language, at least the Bible is, which is 100% allegorical. The Quran is a mixture of allegorical and decisive language. But with the Quran, you must be able to decipher the allegorical so that you can distinguish which is which. Allegorical language is mathematically based, meaning it is mathematical. Allegorical language requires a key to decipher it. Therefore, you can prove its meaning with the appropriate key. Without the key, it's just conjecture. And if anyone claims to know the meaning or interpretation of allegorical verses, such as the parables of Jesus, tell them to show you the key. If they can't, then that's just their opinion, which is worthless. Jesus stated that all his utterances were allegorical, parables, for the stated reason that he didn't want certain people to understand it. But that don't stop the lying Christian preachers from giving you their opinion as gospel and going against what Jesus clearly stated by claiming the parables are not allegorical but literal. Before we go speculating, conjecturing, misleading, deceiving, we should first get some knowledge. we should first learn some mathematics so that we know what we are talking about. The only thing infinite is the oscillating universe, which opens and closes, contracts and expands endlessly. Everything else is finite. We all have a distinct, except for identical twins, genetic code. Oops, did I say that? That blows away the snowflake rule, doesn't it? Because at birth, identical twins are identical. That's why they call them identical, because there's no difference in their genetic code, nor fingerprints, nor anything else. There is a finite amount of molecular patterns that are possible, which can be considered a snowflake. There are only so many possible molecular arrangements for a snowflake. Once all the patterns arrangements are exhausted, then they can only be repeated. We are told that the universe is 76 trillion years old. And there has been at least one snowfall a year since the beginning, and there are more than 76 trillion possible combinations, which there are not. Then there have been duplicate snowflakes. And that's just here on Earth. What about snow on other planets? The cave's assertion that no two snowflakes are alike is because he thinks the universe is only 4 to 5 billion years old. And based on the amount of possible combinations of a snowflake and the relatively short period of time, he could be right, but he is wrong. The universe is 76 trillion years old. Our genetic code, DNA, has a limited amount of possible combinations. When the Quran and Bible talk about our spirit, they mean our nature, which is our DNA or genetic code. The body that we form from the egg of our mothers using the spirit or DNA from our fathers ages and dies eventually. The sperm is alive, is our nature, our spirit. Your DNA is your immortal name, a distinct code that is recorded. Even the cavy can determine your DNA and record it. The egg is the material that we use to form our bodies. The egg is not alive, but the sperm is alive. It has spirit. It is the spirit. The cavy has the ability to clone you from DNA. This is science, not philosophy. Cloning. The messenger stated the cavy, the devils, would peer into and experiment with the seed of the original man before his end. This they are doing. For those who claim that life is finality, that Allah cannot bring us back into life, they should start reading some books as opposed to smoking dope. The devils are cloning animals. They have the ability right now to clone humans. What is that? Cloning is reproducing you, identically you, without memory, albeit but you, reproducing you through the womb. And they are still novices at it, just beginners. So do you deny that Allah cannot do the same or better? If you read Escalades, which some uninformed people like to quote, it makes a distinction between the body which dies and the spirit which doesn't. Your genetic code cannot die. It is mathematical. It is recorded. When the universe is at its full expansion, every possible human genetic combination has been spent, exhausted. Therefore, they can only be repeated in the contraction cycle, which is what the following verses teaches the wise. Quote, how can you deny God and you were without life and he gave you life? Again, he will cause you to die and bring you to life. Then you shall be brought back to him. End quote. You are given life in the expansion cycle during the creation of the heavens. Then your death, followed by being brought back to life via the womb in the contraction phase when the universe is returning back to its starting position. The following verses could not have been understood 1400 years ago, as the science of genetics was not known by the masses 1400 years ago. DNA was not revealed 1400 years ago. Chromosomes were not revealed 1400 years ago. Neither was airplanes, submarines, atom bombs, cell phones, etc. So why would anyone accept the interpretation of the Quran based on the knowledge of 1400 years ago concerning contemporary things? The Christians have the same problem. Most of their understanding of the interpretation of the Bible are based on the ideas and understanding of anywhere from 2,000 to 500 years ago. Yet the scriptures such as Daniel and the Injil, Gospels, clearly state that the books are sealed until the time of the end. The four birds stated are the four strands of chromosomes you get from your parents, two from mother and two from father. To teach submission, to incline, is to study chromosomes, identify and learn to control them. Every mountain are all your relatives, siblings, aunts, uncles, cousins who share parts of your chromosomes. Being scientifically arranged by scientifically arrangement of marriages, you're able to reconstruct, quote, bring back to you, end quote, a particular pattern, which will be you. The problem with being brought back to life via the womb is continuity. If you can't connect with your previous existence, then it's meaningless. You have to be able to connect, to establish continuity, establish memory. There are several ways to accomplish this. The best and most effective is the cloud. The original nation is Allah, the supreme being. The supreme one amongst us is Allah in person, a position currently occupied by Farad. We are all connected with each other, as we are one being, just individual cells which compose the one being. Like cells in our bodies, we are all connected by one nervous system. We are connected by our heartbeat. Our heartbeat generates a pressure wave that our ears can detect, albeit on a subconscious level presently. That's the basis of, quote, tuning in, end quote. All our hearts are connected. Currently, the connection is subconscious. We hear it, but there is so much noise that we can't distinguish from our thoughts and the thoughts we are receiving from everyone else. That's why they call it tuning in. It's like being in a large room packed with people all talking as loud as possible. You would find it difficult to focus on anyone who is talking with you. There is confusion. If you concentrate and focus hard enough, then maybe you'll be able to tune out the noise, the static, and establish a coherent communication. Presently, our hearts are too undisciplined to screen out the noise and allow us to focus. The language of the heart is universal, so there is no need to learn new languages. You just need to firm your heart to the degree that you can distinguish between external thoughts and internal thoughts. To accomplish that, you need to recite the Quran as Farad does 6 to 8 hours per night. Reciting the Quran firms the heart, clears up the static. Presently, because of the energy deficit, we can't afford, don't have the strength to recite the Quran every night for 6 to 8 hours. When we realize the approaching energy waves rejuvenation effects, we will not desire sleep again. We will then be able to spend 6 to 8 hours reciting the Quran rather than sleeping. Once the network conscious connection between us has been reestablished, we will be in communication with each other, tuned in. We'll have the ability to connect with the thoughts of all willing. All of us connected to the original nation called Allah, the cloud. If you need help, everyone can know, as you are a cell of the body. If one cell is corrupted, you have a cancerous situation. Everyone will be connected to everyone. Have need of knowledge, advice, just connect to the cloud. All your memories, experiences, your consciousness, what have you, are all stored on the cloud. So when you decide to relinquish your life, your memories, experiences, etc., be in the cloud, even after you are gone. So when your genetic code, your genetic ID reappears, you can consult the cloud to access your memories, to download everything that the cloud knows of you, which is absolute. That's a real cloud. Affirm condemnation. At no time did I ever ask or suggest that anyone should follow me anywhere. Never. I am revealing and providing this information as a witness against all those liars who are following the liar, called the, quote, mouth, end quote, Louis Farrakhan, the deceiver. It's meant to be a seal on their damnation. They are not Muslims. They are Farrakanites. They should not be calling themselves the Nation of Islam. They are the Nation of Farrakhan. The Nation of Islam is scripture-based. They have discarded the scripture for Farrakhan's philosophies. Quote, see to it that no one takes you captive by philosophy and empty deceit, according to human tradition, according to the elemental spirits of the world, and not according to Christ, end quote. Farrakhan has stated that, quote, prophecy is probability, end quote, which means it is probably right as well as probably wrong, rendering the word of Allah as a guess at best, saying that Allah doesn't know what he's talking about and his word cannot be relied upon. Really? Really? Quote, for the time is coming when people will not endure sound teaching, but having itchy ears, they will accumulate for themselves teachers to suit their own passions, and they will turn away from listening to the truth and wander off into myths. They put the messenger's name on their filthy religion. They reject clear and obvious truth for the odor that emits from his mouth. Philosophy ain't from Allah. Truth is, scriptures are Allah's word and the revealing of his will. You cannot be in submission to Allah's will if you don't know what his will is, and if you don't know the scriptures, you do not know his will.